Good evening and welcome back to Sunday Evening Devotions. Tonight I'm standing by what I call the Wall of Fame at our house. We have the wedding pictures of our four sons and their brides, and we think about getting married and all that goes into planning a wedding. And I wonder how much time we really spend praying about and thinking about the spouses that our children are going to have when they were to get married. Well, hopefully we think a lot about that, because that's what our story is about tonight. It's about a bride for Isaac in Genesis chapter 24. And Abraham did a lot of thinking about that. And he had a plan, and he sent his servant back to his homeland and told him he was to find a wife for his son. But he was not supposed to take Isaac back there. And under no circumstances was Isaac to marry one of the people from Canaan. In other words, Abraham was concerned that Isaac would remain separate from outside influences. He was to be separate from the world, just like Christians are to be separate from the world, to belong to Christ. And while we know that marriage really is a picture of, our union with Christ, it is that sense that we belong to Him, that we are trusting and hoping in faith. It's a long chapter. There's some 66 verses in Genesis 24 speaking about the story, and the story gets told several times. And I think that's instructive to us as we think about remembering stories about weddings. There's always kinds of funny stories about weddings, but thinking about how God brings people together. We do things differently than it did then. The servant was supposed to go and wait by the well, and he had this plan, and Rebecca comes out, and she waters him and the camels and all this stuff, and he puts a nose ring on her and gives her, bracelets and things. And we don't give nose rings today, although I know nose rings are coming back in some ways. Yet, there's these stories, and he told the story again, how God provided and led him to Rebecca. And all of our weddings are our stories, how God brings together two particular people. And I think it speaks to us again about what we should be looking for, I suppose, in a wedding, in the marriage of our partner for life, that God has a plan. And then the whole chapter is a chapter of faith and God's faithfulness, because the seed now is being passed on, shall we say. The promise of the seed is being passed on. It's a new generation. And so this wife for Isaac was to carry the promise forward. And so the servant goes back to the homeland, he finds Rebecca, he gives her gifts, speaks to the family, and she's willing to come a distance. She's willing to go back with him to a place she's never seen, to meet a man she's never met, trusting that God will provide for them, and indeed He does. It's a great story about the blessings of God, the blessings of marriage, that each of us have our turn. There's a cycle to life, and the promise goes forward. Well, that's a real neat thing. And that reminds us of God's faithfulness. Well, that's good news. Good night.